Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast with me. We just hit the afternoon. It's a good sunny day to be starting the afternoon. I'm excited to talk about the Navy's FY23 budget and give you an overview for those of you who are in the federal sales side. One thing I wanted to kind of make clear as we go into the Navy FY23 budget discussion in this session is that I don't come at this from a business analyst or a financial analyst numbers kind of a position or direction. I like to come at looking at the Navy's budget in particular as a salesperson. How can I look at the budget material that they're putting out or they're sending to Congress and we just get to voyeuristically look at their budget? How do we get to look at that budget from a salesperson's perspective to gain information that will help me either start and build relationships by strengthening the questions I ask, making me look like I care more because I actually took the time to understand their documents. I can look in and see where are they spending. Are they spending in the places that I'm looking to go? It'll also give me, by researching this material from a business developer or capture person's perspective, from a sales perspective, I'm able to create a set of action items coming out of this effort. It might take me, like today, we're only doing a 20-minute training, 25-minute training, right? But this should be weeks for you. Because if you're trying to look at, let's say 2023, and you want to make a million or $10 million from the Navy, and you're looking to figure out where can I make that? How can I help the Navy in order to win those contracts, get that revenue, et cetera? Well, if you're willing, if you're going to ask for that kind of win, that kind of revenue, then you want to be able to put that effort in for research. I'm not here to give you a magic pill to succeeding in the Navy. I'm here to give you process tips and suggestions on how you can move forward. So we're going to dive into that. I just want to make sure that you're not coming at this from a Bloomberg type way of looking at it. This is a sales guy whose boots are on the ground. This is how I do this for my customers. When I support customers right now in getting into the Navy or DHS or wherever, this is the type of activity I do. And I just want to share that with you as a training for you, that if you can get a few nuggets from this afternoon or morning session, if you're on the West Coast, or evening if you're watching the replay, then that's a good day for me. So, okay, let's get started. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. And I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. Since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. If you follow a process, you're going to get the predictable results. And that's what I do in these LinkedIn Live trainings and YouTube trainings, is bringing the process and tips to you for success in the federal market. Do me a favor, before we get started, help buyers remember who you are, help me and help others in the community remember who you are by putting your company name and your core competency, 2 or 3 words, into the chat. Some of you have already started, which is awesome. Some of you are already saying, hey, I'm open to connections. That's your community. Look into this community and find people you might be able to work with. Just this morning, I was setting up 4 different introductions, right? I had somebody last week tell me that through this community, they have already gained 4 meetings already and 2 more that are set up. So 6 potential strategic partners that they're working with, or teaming partners that they're working with through this community because they just took it offline, which is great. That's exactly what we hope for. I'm going to teach you, and then while you're in the community, build some new relationships. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go really super fast. I'm going to be sharing a lot of information. The idea and the way you're going to get the best value out of this session is if you listen for nuggets. Don't try to look for everything to be perfect fit to you, right? But look for nuggets. I'm going to give you ideas about how I look at documents, what the different documents are, et cetera. What you want is to just be able to walk away from a training like this with one thing that makes your day go easier, or something that allows you to gain a little bit more insight. Oh, one last thing, especially because this is a Navy training. If you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, do so. And if you're connected with me on LinkedIn, go find a LinkedIn group that we just started called Navy and DIB Defense Industrial Base, right? The industry is called Defense Industrial Base, but Navy and DIB is the name of the group. If you find it, in there, we're putting tons of content. I just put in like 8 or 9 new posts yesterday. And the idea of this group is what we want it to become is this definitive source of helpful information for you to do your job. There's not going to be any job postings where, it's a LinkedIn group where a whole bunch of recruiters are putting open positions, things like that. I get there's value of it, but that's not the purpose of this group. This group is just about sharing basically PDF files of the Navy. If somebody did an industry day, that's what we put yesterday. If there's a strategic plan we put that in there. We do so much research and activity with our customers. We don't need to keep this to ourselves. If I can make it easier by sharing it, make your life easier by sharing it, then we want to do that. Okay, so let's rock and roll on the Navy. Let me switch. Hold on a second. Okay, so I want to show you 5 different documents today as it relates to the Navy, and I'm going to work my way through, and hopefully I can get it all done. And the idea of these documents is they go from a 2-pager that you're seeing here up to a 600-pager. And so today, what I'm trying to show you is there's different ways of looking at the exact same messaging or information coming from the government or from the Navy around their budget. So this is an example of something I don't train on. And what this document really is about is it's showing a lot of factual information. Let me just get my tools right. So a lot of factual information. This is handy. This is good. But really, how much does it help you to sit there and say that, the budget is 65 billion or billion, can't remember what it is there. So down here, 180 billion for the Navy, right? That's the budget. It's cool. I can say it, but it really didn't help you in sales. And so that's why I tend not to train too much about these, but these are good documents. This is just a quick highlight sheet that they hand out so everybody starts having similar language about the Navy. And so there's 2 of them in here, but you can go take a look at it. And it really breaks down, like, how many ships do we have? What are we doing with weapons? Where's our spending? And so it's a great highlight, but I'm not really getting any action items. I'm just getting situational information about the Navy. So then as I move forward, there's this next page, and I want to show you some things I highlighted on it. But this is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy, the budget folks, put together a 1-pager that just says bottom line, right? I don't know if you've ever heard BLUF, bottom line up front. And so we in the military, we tend to do that with our briefings, et cetera. When you do a meeting, you want to say the bottom line up front. This meeting is about this, and then you go forward. And you almost do that every single slide. If you pull up a slide, you say bottom line up front. Well, that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to take 600 plus pages of their budget for the Department of the Navy and put it into 1 page, which I love the whole effort, right? So let me show you some of the things that as I come in here that I like. So the first thing as I start off, right, I'm taking a look and I see the budget for the Department of Navy, which is the Marine Corps and the U.S. Navy. There's 2 of them. You'll see this budget as we go farther along. But total, they're $230 billion with an increase of $9 billion. So that's telling me good. They're spending more. One tip for you to remember is it's not $230 billion that we can get access to, right? Much of that money is being spent on ships and boats or whatever they call it in the water, right? Submarines. Much of it is being spent on government personnel, maybe 1 million people within the Navy, military and civilian. And so it's not all coming your way, but you get a general idea of where they're at. And the reason I like that number is when I'm choosing which agencies to go after, you compare something like the Department of Navy at $230 million and then go to the Department of Education, for example, and a massively reduced budget, like let's say $20 billion or something. So it's big differences, helps you choose it. The next thing that you see me have highlighted here, 2 different documents, and I want you to pay attention whenever you're going through the Department of Navy or any agency's budget material, they're often referencing other documents. And so right here, they're really pointing out the difference between the Navy, so this is the U.S. Navy, the navigation plan that the CNO has, and then the Commandant of the Marine Corps has the Force Design 2030 that you'll see referenced throughout the entire budget. It's what they're driving towards and what the budget is aligning to. Well, that tells me I need to take an action item, go download those 2 documents and begin to read it and understand it. It's not, these documents are not supposed to be a Dan Brown or some fiction novel that's so fascinating that you're turning through, right? It is homework. We tell ourselves, our government tells us, and we tell ourselves that we must do our homework if we want to sell into an agency. Well, here's your homework. Read the navigation plan, read Force Design 2030. Okay, let me pop down a couple of the things that are just from the highlight bluff here. Understanding that there's 285 ships. When we think about ashore or afloat, I get a quick understanding. 96 aircraft one way or another that are out there that they're managing. If you're in that space, this is important. I was talking with somebody who's doing welding, for example. They're in this community. Well, how can you get contracts for welding on ships? You know they got tons of welding. So beginning to find that path in, and those 285 ships are spread out. Quick side box here. One of the PowerPoint or PDFs I uploaded yesterday into the Navy LinkedIn group is from PEO ships, for example, right? And so you can go in and it has an org chart, how they're laid out, and some people's names. That's a perfect way to get started, to start learning about, well, where can I take my welding company to fit into PEO ships and overall Navy? Okay, and then the last thing is just a similar thing down at the bottom here. Military construction is $3.8 billion for 28 projects. The task for me when I look at something like this, if I'm in construction, is, well, what are those 28 projects? I want to know every single one of them. I'm going to put them in a spreadsheet or wherever, and I'm going to list them out, and I'm going to put a little synopsis of what those projects are, and then begin to rack and stack them on whether I think I could fit in there. So if I'm a flooring and painting company, I do elevators, similar type construction, whatever, I'm going to look at these projects, these 28 projects, and begin to decide where could I fit. And from there, I can then do more business development activity to identify opportunities under those 28 projects. So a lot of quick information I got from that one pager, and you can read these the same way, right? For your business, trying to find something you can get out of it. So as I go along, I went from a couple of one pagers, or a 2-page and a 1-page, and now up into the Department of Navy's. This is a president or the highlight briefing, right? So it's 24 slides. I've got a couple of things I highlighted, but because it's only 24 slides, I was just going to flip through and show you for a second. So the first thing I see, I got these little comment boxes to remind me, but the first thing I see in here is that here's 4 strategic documents that are guiding the PB23, right, is what they call it, the Presidential Budget 23. But it's aligned to these documents, the National Defense Strategy, the SecNav Strategic Guidance, and then we already talked about the CNO's NAV Plan and the Commander's Force Design 2030. Those are documents that should be downloaded. If I want to sell into the Department of Navy, and I don't care if I'm welding, doing construction, or I'm doing cybersecurity, or I'm building boats, it doesn't matter. These documents should be downloaded and understood by anybody who's knocking on a Navy door. They're just fundamental to understanding. This next page, as I come down, a couple of things just pop out at me as I look. I'm like, here, there's this increase of facility sustainment and restoration and modernization, right, to $5 billion, basically. When I look at that as a construction person, I might go, okay, well, where is that $5 billion being spent? Is it on those 28 projects? Now I begin to try to align it in here. Is this work? Yes, right? This is work that's beyond those of you who are trying to get your first dollars necessarily. But even if you just understand this and you're knocking on a higher or more successful small business or large and getting wanting to be a sub under them as a prime, having this information, being knowledgeable, allows you to do this authority shifting. You come in more prepared. They don't see you as somebody who's just a small business who doesn't have much revenue. They see you as a person who could help them win because you're knowledgeable. You talk about PB23. You talk about the Secretary of the Navy's strategic documents, et cetera. Okay, so you saw that one, and then empowering our warfighters. This is just another one that pops out. If you're in the workforce development or training world, this budget supports the U.S. Marine Corps' talent management and training and education modernization. That tells me 2 things. One is, okay, good. It's just good to see that they're going that direction. If you read this document, you'll see that people is one of their major priorities, right? The sailors. But the other thing is, it gives me a task to say, okay, from a business development standpoint, where is the U.S. Marine Corps talent management efforts being managed out of? Are there strategic documents that talk about that so I can begin to learn more and fit in, right? This is all shifting left. When I talk about these action items that I'm trying to learn more, I'm shifting left. And what I mean from shifting left is I'm going away from SAM.gov where an RFP or an RFI even would drop, and I'm shifting left into the program offices. I'm beginning to try to find them. And when you struggle with how do you get in, part of it is just knowing who to get into, but part of it is just knowing what type of offices you're trying to get into. In this last bullet here that I just talked about, it's training and education modernization. I would be doing my research on that. I would be talking to small business professionals, et cetera, trying to figure out who's got that under control. Okay, so as I come down, you start seeing a lot of different things. Here they're talking about our adversaries. This one's pretty cool. This is operational context, right? And you begin to understand this spread. I tell people, when you're in the federal government federal market, right? You're supporting their mission. You're not just doing welding or SharePoint or cybersecurity or something. You're actually supporting the sailors who are out there protecting this country, fighting our wars. And you begin to see just something like this map. But the cool things is I get little tips, right? So if I'm in cyber, I got cyber and communication assets. Right here, it says there's 40 Navy and 13 Marine Corps CMF teams. By knowing that, I'm going to go, okay, what are those teams? What does a CMF team do, right? Those kind of things. And you'll see if I get to it where it describes it. But when I've worked with my customers in the Navy, I'm actually laying out all 40 of those. And I go, is there a play for me in cyber in those CMF teams? And the same thing as you look at some of this other stuff. Coming down here, just remember I told you it's like 230 billion. There it is for the Department of Navy. Well, it's broken up into the Navy and the U.S. Marine Corps. So the Marine Corps has got a $50 billion budget and $180 billion budget for the Navy. Navy's got one of the largest budgets out there. And so that's important to know. Just having the reason that's really important to me is when I stress that you should focus in one agency and go deep. When you've got an agency that spends $180 billion and you got another agency over here that spends $17 billion, then why would you even knock on those doors? Yes, you could do work everywhere, but if you've got the ability to sell into the Navy, for today's example, then go in and go deep and know that if you do a good job and bring a niche that they need your services on, then teammates and buyers will find you and help you grow to that $100 million business. Okay, so let me keep going down. So you'll see the pattern here. I don't want to talk too far about it, but as I go down, the things that I like that I'm seeing is if I was going to be engaged in any level of the shipbuilding, I can start seeing what are the ships out there? What are some of the information? What is some of the information around it? If I'm doing construction, right? And I see my time's going, so I might switch over because I got these last two I want to talk about. But down here, I can see construction, right? Restoration and modernization. I don't know what that is, but if I'm a painter, does that make sense that it probably fits there? Well, that's $277 million that you're doing in restoration and modernization. I want to learn about that. First, I might start in my backyard, like Virginia Beach or something, but there's no reason I couldn't expand across the country or even Oconus that is a fit for you. But by looking at these numbers and you start beginning to understand where can I fit and who can I go ask more questions about this information. And let me pause 1 second, because for many of you that might be the small business specialist, sometimes they don't even read the budget. And so it's important for you to point out that, hey, I'm going to come in, I want to talk to you. I don't want to be in here on a capabilities briefing going, I do painting and flooring, right? I'd like to talk to you. And if you can let them know that you've read the budget or the strategic document, you have questions around that, it really puts them in a different mindset. They're like, ooh, okay, I got a business that's prepared here. They're coming in ready to talk to me, not just asking about what opportunities can I get a direct award for, but they're coming in to say, how can I support the Navy's mission related to MILCON or restoration, modernization, et cetera. Okay, so there's a lot of other stuff I went through, but you notice I only got to 9 pages. But let me go to this next document. So now we're going up from 24 pages to 181 pages. By the way, the whole time I'm just showing you budget-related material, and you can find all this online, right? For almost every single agency, you can find it online. But so here, this one's huge, and this is the main document I tend to sit in, right? The little ones are cool, and I look at them, but they don't provide a lot of meat. And then the large one, which you'll see in a minute, which is 664 pages, right? That's great, but it's a massive amount of tables. And so it's a little different way of looking at it. But this one has a little bit more language where they're talking. And so I want to come down pretty quickly to just show you a little bit of how I look at it. Here's that one pager, right? The bluff, bottom line up front. And then where I start, and I know this seems a little basic maybe, but I play in the basic levels. If you do the little things correct, then you will get the big things right. And so I start with the table of contents. Wherever I've got an outline, I want to look in here and see what I can find. So right here, remember what I was saying about understanding the strategic documents. Right in here, these documents, this whole section, I want to go in and understand because it will give me many action items take away from this review of documents I need to read, and it's important for you to read them as well. These aren't just for business development, right? And understanding the budget. As you move forward and go into capture, it certainly is going to help you with capture because it'll improve your ability to talk about challenges or future goals that they have in that dialogue. But it'll also help your proposal writers and your writers learn more about the customer they're writing for. They are not in the Navy. They're not going out, knocking on doors, going to conferences or whatever, right? So these proposal writers would benefit hugely if you shared these strategic documents with them and maybe even point out some of the stuff that you think is really relevant to what your company does. I guarantee you, if you brought strategic documents to them and not just sent it, but actually sat down and talked about what you liked about it, they would really appreciate it. So I'm clicking through the table of contents, and I want to get down to this one part, right? There's all these different sections you can see a lot, and I'm going to go into this cyber section, which is good for me, right? Let's say I'm a cyber company, and I want to learn a lot more. In fact, one of my customers is cyber and trying to go into the Navy, so it's perfect. I'm showing you exactly what I'm doing with them. But if I come here to page 151 and share some of the stuff I have in here, and I'm just tracking my time. Anybody else get thirsty when we do these? Okay, so as I'm coming down, this is really great stuff for me, right? The first thing I'm seeing is cybersecurity is a top priority. That is not an empty line. The first 5 words that they used in their overview is that cybersecurity is a top priority. I'm like, perfect. Everything that they care about is some way or another connected to cybersecurity, as you see, right? They're talking about we need to treat our information as a strategic asset and increase our lethality, improve the readiness, and sustain resilience in the cyberspace, right? They're telling us what they need to do. What I like about that is it gives me language that I can start repeating back. As I come into your command and I want to help you treat information as a strategic asset as you work to increase the lethality, things like that. Like I take these words and I try to regurgitate them back. I'm not taking the whole sentence and saying it's mine, but I'm starting to speak their language, right? This next sentence, cybersecurity and cyber operations fall within the scope of information warfare. You must understand this. If you're supporting Navy, for example, they're in the business of warfare, right? They'd love not to go to war, but their job is to win our nation's wars, right? Defend the country. And in there, we call it information warfare. So understanding that you're so much more than just cyber, how you might see it at a commercial customer, but cyber here fits into their overall plan for information warfare. And then the same thing, it talks about going across multiple domains. Multiple appropriations is what I wanted to write. What it means is it's not like you have cyber and here's a cyber budget. No, you have information warfare or cybersecurity, and it's being funded from all these different appropriation sources, et cetera. So understanding that makes me take an action and say, well, where are those appropriations? What are those appropriations? Because maybe I can't go this direction, but I can go this direction and try to land a contract. So this one here, I love this whole, 4 or 5 pages, whatever it is, but I'm just going to come down and keep pointing out some that pop to me. So here it talks about even the Marine Corps, right? They're continuing to grow and mature their cyber capabilities through the Marine Forces Cyber Command. 2 things about this. One is great, Marine Force Cyber Command. Now I got the name of the command. I need to dig further. I was at the Department of Navy. Now I'm at the Marine Corps Cyber Command. I'm down to an echelon 1 or 2 or whatever, right? And then who's in that Marine Corps Cyber Command? Action item for me. Let me go find out all the subordinate commands so then I can start trying to see if there's people on LinkedIn that are in those commands, if they're putting out information on their own, how I can get going. If I know who those commands are or what those commands are, when I talk to somebody like a small business specialist, I sound way more intelligent and that I've done my homework by being able to talk about, hey, I want to go to the subordinate command within the Marine Forces Cyber Command. And actually, this person here is the commander. Can you make an introduction? They're going to go, holy smokes, this person's done their introduction. The other thing is that they want to grow and mature cyber capabilities. That will go into my conversations when I have meetings, right? I understand from the budget, material, and strategic documents that you're really trying to focus on growing and maturing the cyber capabilities. Which particular areas do you feel like are at the forefront of your prioritization list, right? What's at the top of the priority list for growing and maturing? Which capabilities are at the top of the list? Right? Things like that. Here they're talking about an expansion of cyber mission forces team that was up above. I'm like, okay, what are those cyber mission forces teams? When you talk about doing business development is understanding the customer and identifying opportunities, right? And building relationships is obviously fundamental to that. But identifying opportunities, the way you identify opportunities is you're shifting left and getting into the program office, and you're meeting people and having the conversations, building relationships. Well, it all begins with understanding that there's a cyber mission forces team. It's like, okay, that's somebody who does something related to cyber, which I sell. How do I get in there? How do I start talking? And not so much how, but I'm going to get in there. I'm going to start talking. I'm going to understand their priorities, and then I'm going to talk about how we can help. You can see some of this other stuff that they're talking about. But the one part I wanted to highlight here is the word versus, right? And I tried to somehow highlight it, but this word versus, what they're saying is the enterprise network modernization is going to increase cybersecurity and teleworking as a Department of Navy improvement, top level, right? Department of Navy, versus it being done individually by the Navy and the Marine Corps' efforts separately. So they're trying to bring it together, saying, why are we doing it separately, right? Let's come together as one. Not to read a lot into that, but because I see that might be questions I ask customers in the Navy or the Marine Corps, saying, how do you feel about this idea of coming underneath the Department of Navy? Or what is that? What's that experience? I don't even know anything about it. I need to research it and understand it. And then they talk about here, the next table has some of their efforts. And so let me drag this up. But as I come through, this is perfect, right? This is all related to cybersecurity. Here is a table that now takes that $230 billion budget all the way down to $7 billion budget, right? Way down. And I can begin to look at this and I go, well, where are areas I might be able to play? I'm only trying to pick up another $5 or $10 million in sales next year in cyber. Where are they? Excuse me. And so as I look at this, remember, not all of this budget is contract dollars, right? It could be personnel, things like that. But it helps me understand the way they lay out cyber at the bottom is in these 4 categories. Okay, how do I learn more about it? How do I start digging into it? Let me pop over to this last thing. I only got a couple minutes left, but I just wanted to talk about when I look at a page like this and 664 pages in this. Yes, you can flip through the pages. And yes, I've sat there drinking a coffee and gone through the pages and just see what pops up. But you can also sit there and do it by searching, right? So you can search for, oh, I already did that, security. So cybersecurity, right? If I type cybersecurity, I'm looking at 17 matches here, which is awesome. And as I come down, it tells me certain things. And so here, I don't know if you can see it, but this program increases and they're talking about certain things. And so let me just fit in really quick. Right here, it's just talking about airplanes, right? And this repair of repairable something, it directly impacts their the aircraft readiness, right? My whole point is go through the budget, searching on your keywords, and you'll find things like this come up. And I'm like, wait a minute, cybersecurity, I can have, there's a play with cybersecurity in there, you know, it's something for me to explore. And there's 17 links to cybersecurity. There's a lot more when I type cyber operations or cyberspace. And so don't stop with one word. One other thing I wanted to pop over here, I was talking about language. Right here, here's an example of something to pay attention to. They talk about there's 3 types of cyberspace operation. And the reason I wanted to point this out, I forgot about it, but this is the language they use. And when I talk to somebody and they say they do cyber, I'm like, whatever. What kind of cyber do you do? Do you do offensive cyber where we attack? Do you do defensive cyber where we protect against people trying to attack us? Do you work on the DoD information network operations? Where are you? Well, understanding it really helps us, right? And then I can begin to look at their teams. And remember, I talked about those 40 teams. All of this is coming from the budget. And the reason this is so exciting for me is because I might take forever to try to talk to somebody to learn this. But if I take a couple of days to just dig into the budget material that agencies put out, like the Navy, then I'm able to really begin to understand their language, what they're doing, what their priorities are. And that's what I hope you will get as well from this. So hopefully you found it valuable. Today we talked about a lot. I know I drove into it. There is a link. Just go type in Navy budget and you'll find all the documents on their website on one page, which is beautiful. And then slowly start digging into it if you're in the Navy. If you found today's training valuable, you want more of this, do 2 things. Put thanks in the chat. Always appreciate that. And the second is, remember, we're doing 7 more agencies over the next 7 business days. And so I'd love to have you come back for that. I want you to remember that government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Hope you have a great day. I will see you in the next training.